Recovered alcoholic. Thank you, Rob, and welcome everyone to the Fourth Dimension big book study. That is, I'm glad you're all here. I'm really glad my friend Dominic is here. Hello, Dominic. Good to see you, buddy.
How's it going?
I'm good.
Good
It's
to
been a
see you.
little while. It's been a little while. I'm glad to see
has,
you.
yes.
I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that I'm here. I'm glad that we're all here. So let's get into the opening statement, the set aside prayer. God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, about the 12 steps. Please allow me to gain a fresh new vision, perspective, and understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. Amen. Okay, and as this is the Fourth Dimension Big Book study, I always like to read the two parts of our book that refer to the fourth dimension. But tonight, Brad, if you would be kind enough, would you mind taking that off? So we'll, or taking that over rather.
Sure.
So page 8 and page 25, as I'm sure you well know.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brad Soloto. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and we are starting on page 8. That says, I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. And then we'll skip ahead to page 25, where it says, we have found much of heaven, and we've been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed.
Awesome. Good stuff. And finally, for everyone who will, for the sake of tradition, you know what's coming. Everybody put one hand up like this. Everybody put another hand up like this. And everybody go, oh, yeah. Jerry's getting right into it now, man. Jerry, I see you, Jerry. That's how we bounce. Oh, man, I'm going to have a good time tonight. I'm going to have fun. I insist. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. I insist on enjoying life tonight. It's completely optional. Okay? You don't have to, but I highly recommend it. So really glad to be here, guys. We are on step 4 tonight. I got a lot of feedback actually from last time that a few people have never heard anyone explain, like, actually tactically how we write out a step 4. And so I'm glad to have had a chance to share that with you. Let's just review a little bit in terms of step 4, tactically what we do. So I'm gonna share something with you. If you're listening here on YouTube, I apologize, you won't be able to see this, but I will share it nonetheless. This is there, sorry, my computer's a little slow. Okay, you guys can see this right now. This is exactly how we set up the page in a step 4. And as I said last week, the first thing you want to do is get like a coil ring notebook, coil ring binder, or some type of notebook, you know, something like this. Can you see that? See that, guys? Okay, just a simple coil ring notebook. And we want to section off the pages as you see there. Okay, so 1 line through the center, and then 2 lines through the top. Column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. What I would do exactly, guys, if this was the notebook, okay, 1 line through the center. Oh, this of course is not going to work. That would be too easy. I'll grab another pen here. One line through the center, 2 lines through the top. Turn the page. 1 line through the center, 2 lines through the top. Turn the page. 1 line through the center, 2 lines through the top. Okay. And that's how we're going to set it up. We're going to make those lines on several, 50 pages. I'll say at least 50 pages. Just make those lines. And there is spiritual value in just making the lines. Even just taking the time to do that. Okay. As I said last week, we're going to say a prayer before we begin. doing the writing, something to the effect of God, please be with me in this process and show me what I need to learn to know you better, to stay sober and to know you better. Okay, boom, perfect. Start writing out all those lines. And then we want to make sure that we understand. So first of all, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this step 4? We're doing this step 4 to clear away the things within myself that are blocking me from the power. Power, what? The power of God. The power of God that helps me to stay sober. Guys, one of the things I want to hammer home as part of this big book study, I want everyone to understand that Alcoholics Anonymous does not get me sober. Big book does not get me sober. 12 steps do not get me sober. Sponsor does not get me sober. Sponsoring other people does not get me sober. AA, the 12 steps, big book, sponsorship, those things get me connected to God, and God gets me sober. Okay, the power gets us sober. The actions of Alcoholics Anonymous, the actions that we are asked to take, are what allow us to access the power. And this step that we are doing right now, step 4, clearing away the things within us that had been blocking us. That's what the book says. Had been blocking us from what? Blocking us from the power. Okay, so we're going to clear that stuff away by doing this work. Okay, so we start to make those lines. Then I want to make sure. I'll share something else with you guys. Well, so first of all, let me ask you. We talked about this last week. Our book says being convinced itself is what had caused our problems. We considered its common manifestations. Okay, and what are the 3 common manifestations of self that we look at in a step 4? Can anybody tell me? There's 3 of them. The 3 common manifestations of self that we look at in a step 4. Not Brad. Anyone else? I see his Cheshire cat smile grin coming. I know you know, Brad. Teacher.
I can be quiet.
Anybody? I know Alex. Alex, I know you know. We just did this a little while ago. Vincent, I bet Vincent knows.
Yes, Kevin, resentment, fears, and sex conduct.
Boom! Who's this guy? Great job, Vincent. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So those are the 3 common manifestations of self we're going to look at in a step 4. Resentment, fear, sex conduct. Okay? We're going to do a 4-column inventory on resentment. Then we're going to come back. We're going to do another 4-column inventory on fear. Then I'm going to come back and do another 4-column inventory on sex conduct. Okay. Last week we got to column 2. Okay, where we talked about kicking off in terms of our resentments. Okay, and how important it was to get column 1 right. And column 1, as you will see here, in this example, column 1 is just mom. Okay, next page. Then I turn the page. What I don't try to do is write all the resentments down on one page. Okay, so I'm going to start here. You guys can see the video. Okay, so I'm going to write mom. Okay, and I turn the page. Now I threw out some last week. Somebody throw out some resentments of your own. Okay, I know you guys are all spiritually fit and recovered alcoholics, but pretend for a moment that you actually had, boss, Rob K. Rate's boss.
That was pretty quick, Rob.
Rob Irons, I seem to remember the last time, about 12 weeks, it was still your boss then, man. So either he's still a bad actor or you've got some work to do. Or maybe you got a new job and I'm sure your boss is the problem. I'm sure. Okay, so boss, somebody throw out another one. Give me another one. Feel free to unmute yourself. And Deb, give me a resentment.
Towards my mom or anybody.
Mom or anybody. Okay, we got Deb's mom.
Yeah,
Okay.
she wouldn't let me go out with boys
There you
till
go.
I was 18.
Well, and Ollie puts father here, and that's that's one of the sad truths to any of us who are our parents, is that almost invariably when you start listening to step 5s, it's like public enemy number 1 is mom, public enemy number 2 is dad, almost invariably, almost any one that you listen to, and there's really no way to get away from it. And then the next one is ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, ex whatever. Okay. Now, one of the things we talked about
myself, me, myself, me.
Well,
I
Luda,
said
so,
that's
so,
hard.
so listen, here's what I'll say about that. I don't write about myself. I don't put myself. Our book says that selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my trouble. And I can't imagine much more selfish or self-centered than sitting around writing an inventory about myself, about how much I resent myself.
Okay.
So I try not to do that. On the other hand, Luda, that does not mean that I'm right. I'm just telling you that I don't do that. I don't teach my sponsees to do that. But Luda, if your sponsor tells you to do that, and that's what your sponsor wants you to do, your sponsor is right. Okay, that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll show you here. We talked about this last week. We had
A neighbor.
the resentment prompt sheet. Give me a
Well,
second.
Back to mom and dad. And there's resentment and fear involved in these is neglect and abandonment.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I think, okay, so I resent, and and that might be a column 2 thing, right? So it might be, I resent my father. Why? Because he neglected me and he abandoned me, right? And then there's fear, but I might also resent abandonment. I could resent abandonment. So, and this is what I'm showing you guys here. Can you guys see the resentment inventory prompt sheet right in here? Good to go? Okay. So this is a super important thing to put. You just put this into Google. You could just put resentment inventory prompt into Google, step 4 prompt sheet, whatever it is. And it gives me a whole bunch of different types of things that I can resent. So, and I really appreciate that. Tom, was that you talking about abandonment and neglect? Was that you, Tom?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, perfect. So that's an example of a principle that I might resent. Okay. So neglect is a principle. Abandonment is a principle. I might resent the principle of abandonment in myself, or I might resent, hey, my wife, I really love my wife, and but her dad abandoned her and it's given her all these issues. And I resent him, but I just resent abandonment just in general. Okay. And that would be a fine thing. That would be great stuff. So the point is, guys, that I want to get column 1 right. And it's just stream of consciousness. As the names come out, I just write them down. And I write one name per page. So I write the page, turn, write the next one. Turn the page, write the next one. Turn the page, write the next one. This is why I think it's important to get all the lines straightened out of the gate. So I can just write boom, boom, name, 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 name. Okay. We talked about this last week. What I like to do, guys, is I'll set a timer for 10 minutes. And I have a commitment to myself and to God that I will do a minimum of 10 minutes a week on my not a week, 10 minutes a day on my step 4. If I'm chipping it away at it, at minimum 10 minutes a day, I'm going to get through it. The worst thing to do is to stall out in the middle of a step 4. So we're going to keep moving right through it. In terms of column 2, then, Brad, and let's actually go to the page in the book where it gives us the first directions. Okay, so it says we listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we are angry. Okay, can you read that paragraph for us, actually, Brad, please?
Yeah. I'll start at the top of the paragraph. So we're on the bottom of page 64. If you get it, if everyone.
Page 64 in your book.
Resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there. Okay,
Yep.
so first of all, I want to just highlight that we learned the root of our problem right there. Okay, we have not only been physically and mentally ill, but we have been spiritually sick. We talked about this at length last week, but I need to just reaffirm, when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. Okay. I know if you're like me, okay, I was in and out of AA for many years and failed many times. And I kept trying to put other things ahead of the spiritual malady. I kept saying to myself, I'm going to straighten out mentally, and I'm going to straighten out physically, and I'm going to straighten out financially first. And then I'll worry about the spiritual stuff. Okay. And hey, if that works, I mean, by all means, give it a shot. Okay. That didn't work for me. And for me, It wasn't until I put the spiritual malady first that I then when the spiritual malady was overcome, then I straightened out mentally and physically. Instruction number 1, we listed principles, people, principles, or institutions with whom we were angry. The next line that Brad read, we asked ourselves why we were angry. Okay, so column 1 is who we're angry at. In this case, we're all resentful at Rob's boss. We're all resentful at Rob's boss. He's such a jerk. Rob's boss. Okay. Okay. So that's column 1. Column 2, we asked ourselves why we were angry. Okay. Now, what did we talk about last week? What I've been taught is on page 65, when we look at the example of, say, Mr. Brown, and we read the cause or why he was angry, at no point in none of the bullets that they write out do they use more than 19 words. And if I want what the first 100 have, I have to do what they do. And so I instruct my sponsees, and I myself keep them very small, short bullet points. Okay, I'm not writing the ongoing 3-part mini series of, tune in tonight for the exciting conclusion of Rob's boss. Okay, these are very small, quick little bullet points that we're writing out. This is very matter of fact. Okay, he cheated on me. He stole from me. They lied to me. I was made to feel small. They belittled me, hurt my feelings. She's a jerk, whatever it might be. Okay, simple, quick bullet points. That's what our book says, and that's what I do. Okay. So, with that said, those are the first 2 directions. We listed people, principles, or institutions with whom we're angry. Column 1, column 2, simple. Why? Column 1, who? Column 2, why? We asked ourselves why we were angry. Okay, well, now let's figure that out. Brad, do you want to read the rest of the paragraph for us?
In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned up.
Keep going.
On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations which had been interfered with?
Okay, what we just read is column 3. Okay, so column 1, Rob's boss. I don't mean to pick on you, Rob. It's just the resentment that we have. Rob's boss. Column 2, why? Why are we resentful at Rob's boss?
You
Okay.
do know that my boss is my wife, right?
No. That's amazing. That's great. Which actually brings me to something else that I'll talk about. I'll talk about in a minute when we talk about particularly intimate relationships and doing those. Well, you know what? I'll just talk about it right now. One of the things that we can do as we get like deeper into these, for anyone who's like maybe done, been around for a few years. I know there's some older timers on the meeting right now who are, looking for a fresh experience in doing inventory. One of the things I was taught, and I have been taught, and I have practiced, is say we have someone like, for Rob's example, Rob's wife. Well, we might have wife, but then we have different facets of that relationship. Okay, so Rob might let's say Rob's wife's name was Mary. Okay, Mary, the boss, and then turn the page. Mary as a family member, and then turn the page. Mary as a roommate or someone that I cohabitate with, and the doing the chores and all that kind of stuff. Mary as an intimate partner, and then I can look at all the different aspects of resentments that I might have in all of those different areas in terms of all the different facets of that relationship that I might have. Does that make sense to you guys? So particularly for you, Rob, if she's your boss, there's multiple different types of relationships that you have with that same person, and so that can be another really good way to do it. Okay, so what Brad just read was column 3. Okay, was it our, and this is column 3 here. We'll call it affects my. Okay, I'm really glad I have this notebook here. This is my office in Houston that I'm sitting in right now. So I don't have my whiteboard behind me, otherwise I'd be writing this up, but this I'll have to do. So we got Rob's boss, column 2, Y, column 3, call it affects my. Okay? Affects my, okay? Does it affect my, Brad just read, our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sexual relations which had been interfered with, okay? So, one of the things about security, when it says security there, what does it mean by security? Well, I like to look at 3 different types of security, okay? There is physical security, okay? Which is to say this relationship with this person, this resentment I have, does it put my life in danger? Okay? My mental security, or rather emotional security, okay, which is the same as did they hurt my feelings? What this person did it hurt my feelings? And then column 3, financial security. Is this person impacting my income, my ability to make money, or my financial security? That's pretty easy to see, okay? So we want to look at each resentment and ask ourselves this question: did it impact my self-esteem, my emotional security, my financial security, my physical security, my ambition, my personal relationships, or my sexual relationships? Okay? And typically, the more I don't know if I talked about this last week, but when I'm writing out my column 1, when I'm writing those resentments down, there are going to be a lot of just nickel and dime resentments, just small little annoyances and irritants. But there are also going to be some major $50 bills in there. You guys understand what I mean? You all know who your $50 bills are too. We all know who our $50 bills are. Okay? The more powerful one of those $50 bills are in my life, typically, the more of these are activated in column 3. Or conversely, the more of those things that are activated in column 3 is a good indication of how powerful and how destructive that resentment is in my life. Okay. So for example, let's say I had, here's one more thing I want to say about column 1. I don't actually have to know the person's name. Okay. So I remember one of mine was kid in Woodbine Elementary School in grade 1 who pushed me off the slide and told me nobody liked me. Okay. And I'm talking like 20, 25 years later, I'm sitting in a treatment center writing this inventory about this kid who, you know, I can't remember his name. I don't know, but I remember getting pushed off that slide. I can still feel the rocks, the pebbles that had cut into my hand because he pushed me off the slide into the gravel on the ground. You guys know what I mean? Now, did that impact my self-esteem? Nod your heads if you guys understand what I'm saying. Did that impact my self-esteem when the kid pushed me off the slide and told me nobody liked me? Yes, it did. Did it impact my physical security? Yes, absolutely he did. Did it impact my emotional security? Yeah. Kid hurt my feelings like crazy. Did it impact my financial security? Not really. I mean, if you want to say, well, yeah, because of that, I became an alcoholic and wasn't able to make a living, like, oh, yeah, all right, maybe, okay. Okay. Did it impact my ambition? Kid pushes me off the slide. Hell yeah, I never wanted to go slide again in my life, man, let alone have friends. What's the point? Friends like that, who needs enemies, man? Yeah, that impacts my ambition. Did it impact my personal relationships? Yeah, with all the kids on the slide in grade 6 at Woodbine Elementary School. Okay. Did it impact my sexual relations? No, it didn't. Okay. So that's what that looks like. That's how we do it. Okay. So let's say my boss, I'm angry at my boss. Say my boss embarrassed me in front of some people and made me feel incompetent. Okay. Does that impact my self-esteem? Yes. Does it impact my emotional security? Yes. Does it impact my physical security? Not really. Does it impact my financial security? Yeah, that's the guy that signs my paychecks, man. Yeah, it does. You better believe it does. That's why we get so elevated about things at work, because it automatically, things go wrong at work. My very livelihood is in danger. You guys understand what I'm talking about? Like my ability to make money and live in the world it's a big thing. My boss embarrasses me. Does it impact my ambition? Yeah, I'm gonna quit. I don't even want to go to work. Impact my personal relations. Yeah, with everyone at work. Impact my sex relations. I guess that depends on the workplace, but no, it likely doesn't. Okay. So, that's what we do. Okay. And that's column 3. That's simply all we do. Does this thing impact my self-esteem, my emotional security, financial security, physical security, my ambition, my personal relations, or my sexual relations? Now, you may say to me, Kevin, do I actually have to write this out every time? Oh, I don't know. My book says half measures availed me nothing. Sitting and writing in little codes my step 4 or saying I'm just going to write check marks, it sounds like a half measure to me. But here's the other thing. Here's the reality of it. This is a tool. This is a toolkit. This is part of my spiritual toolkit that I carry with me all the time. Okay. And so when I'm at work and something is going on and I'm feeling, irritated or concerned about something that my, coworker has said or whatever it is, I have a little inventory printed on the inside of my forehead. Okay. Column 1, who? That guy. Column 2, why? Because of what he just said or whatever. Column 3, how does this impact me? Okay. And I want to be able to access right away self-esteem, physical security, emotional security, financial security, ambition, personal relations, sex relations. And by writing it out many, many, many times, it just imprints it in my mind. Okay. That's why I do it. Okay. If you want to know the reason why I think I should write it out every time for every one of them, it's so that it's imprinted in my mind. And this is a spiritual tool that I keep sharp. Okay. We got to keep our tools sharp, guys. Okay. These spiritual tools get dull. So do I, believe me. Okay. So that's column 1, column 2, and column 3. Brad, would you be kind enough to read for us up to column 4? Because what we're going to talk about right now, guys, is kind of an unknown thing in a lot of ways in AA. Okay, we talk a lot about a 4-column inventory, but there is something very crucial and important and life-changing that is going to happen between column 3 and column 4. So the way, guys, I'm going to write this out for you, the way I like to think about it. So I have column 1, column 2, column 3. Then I have this piece that comes before column 3 and column 4, and then I have column 4. Okay. Does anybody know what happens here? Does anybody know what happens between column 3 and column 4? Yeah, Mitesh nailed it. Yeah, we got a prayer, man. We got a prayer. Okay. On page 67 and page 552. Page 67 and page 552. And that's what Brad is going to read for us right now.
Do you want to start with we went back through our lives now, skip the table part of it?
Yep.
Okay, so bottom of page 65. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We have found that it is fatal, for when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again, and with us to drink is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. We turned back to the list, for it held the key to the future.
Where is it?
We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle.
Vienna.
We began to see that the world and its
Vienna.
people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. This was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry, thy will be done. We avoid retaliation.
Sorry, I'm gonna
Wanna
pause
stop
there, Brad.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause you there. Thank you very much for doing that reading. Okay, so it says this was our course. We realized the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Another way that I like to think about it, the Buddhist monk, Zen Buddhist monk. Anybody know Thich Nhat Hanh? Anybody ever seen Thich Nhat Hanh before? Yeah, I love Thich Nhat Hanh. You can see, Thich Nhat Hanh refers to people as suffering. Okay, so our book says we realize the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Another way to think of it is they are sick or they are suffering. Okay, the people who wronged us may not actually even want to harm us. Okay, they may not even want to harm us, but they are suffering. And their suffering is spilling out of them. And we are not even the first victims of their suffering. Who is the first victim of their suffering? They are the first victim of their own suffering. And when I can become interested in their suffering, as opposed to obsessed with my own suffering, I can begin to grow compassion. And the purpose of suffering is to grow compassion in the heart of the sufferer. Okay? So we realized the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick or suffering. That is to say that and here's the other thing about it. Sometimes saying that they're just spiritually sick is just kind of dismissive. He's just a sick bastard anyway. Who cares about him? Okay? It's not exactly the spiritual ethic we're going for. Okay? No, but when I can look at them as a suffering human being, you can see, we can all clearly see that, our mom was suffering, our dad was suffering, our boss is suffering with the weight of the world on his shoulders, our coworkers are suffering. I don't want to get into political stuff, but however, anytime you're looking at the news, whether people are on one side of the thing or they're on the other side of the thing, you can see whether it's this country and that country, both of those countries, the people in those countries are suffering. Can you see that? And we can begin to understand and have compassion for one another. Okay. And so what our book says is that we asked, anytime it says in our book, we asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience we would grant a sick friend, right? When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry. Thy will, not mine, be done. Okay, there's some really important stuff in there. Okay, so first of all, the short form of the step 4 resentment prayer is just God save me from being angry. That is it. Okay, nothing else. You can't remember anything else from this big book study. Those 3 words. Okay, 6 words. God, I had to count them. God save me from being angry. It's that simple. God save me from being angry. That's it. Okay. And there are times, man, where that's all I'm doing is just saying that over and over in my head, biting my tongue, sitting in a meeting at work. Heck, sitting at my home group in a business meeting. Okay. God save me from being angry. God save me from being angry. God save me from being angry. Okay. And notice, guys, it doesn't say, God, please take away my anger. It says, God, save me from being angry. Why do I need to be saved from being angry? Well, 2 reasons. Number 1, because getting angry gets me drunk. And the other is I do not do anger well. Okay? I do not take anger for a walk around the block. I drive anger like a fast car into a brick wall. That's how I do anger. I don't do anything a little bit, including anger. And so God saved me from being angry, because I promise you, brothers and sisters, I have seen my anger destroy people and destroy jobs and careers in my life. And I tell you what, man, that happened to me in sobriety. Physically sober as I am right now, with my anger completely out of control, hurting people again. God saved me from being angry, okay? Now I'm going to share with you guys one of the keys to the kingdom, one of the incredible things that was gifted to me by my first sponsor. The line about we ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. I'm going to share with you right now what I like to call the hospital meditation. I'm not going to do a big heavy thing into this. I'm just going to share with you that what I do is I will picture in my mind. Okay, I'm going to take everyone through this. I want you all to close your eyes for a moment. Okay, trust me. Please trust me. Everybody, trust me. Close your eyes for a moment. I'll do it too. Okay. I want you all to picture in your mind, and this is what I do with my sponsees that have heavy resentments that they're trying to work through. Okay. I want you to close your eyes and picture a hospital that you know very well, and you can picture it in your mind's eye, okay? And we are going to visit in the hospital this sick friend of yours, this sick and suffering resentment that you have. This person, this individual, this human being is in this hospital, and they are sick and they are suffering and they are dying, and they are in physical pain, just like most of us are actually in spiritual, psychic, mental pain. We're envisioning this person in pain. So we're going into the hospital, we're walking through the lobby doors. I always like to stop at the gift shop as well and ask myself, what would I get for this person if I was going to see them? Would I get them a chocolate bar? Would I get them a Coke, a bottle of water, magazine, a little stuffed animal? What would I get for them? Take that, I go into the elevator, up, past the nurse's station, into that room, and there is this person that I resent, sitting, laying in that bed, in pain, suffering greatly. And I imagine myself, I do a little thought exercise, little meditation about what service I would do for them in that moment, whether it was plumping their pillows or opening the drapes a little, let some sunshine in, or whatever it is. I remember one sponsee vividly got a lot out of imagining that they were sick and their lips were very dry, and just taking some ice chips and just moistening their lips a little bit, okay? This person that we resent, and thinking about if I can have that same, just for a moment, same level of love and understanding and compassion in that moment for them that I would, then I begin to heal. I begin to let go of that resentment. Okay, so you guys can open your eyes. Hey, you're all still here. I thought for sure I was going to open my eyes and you guys all would have dropped off the call. Thought, what is this? What is this sorcery that Kevin's having us do? Super powerful stuff though, man. Super powerful. And if I'm willing to practice that, I'll tell you what, man, I had a guy from Kansas who used to come to this big book study, this very study. And he had a resentment towards someone. It was the man that killed his niece, a murderer. And the guy was in jail. This guy killed his niece. Now he didn't have any kids of his own. His niece was like his own daughter, and this guy killed his niece. And he was sober, and he wanted to stay that way, but he could not let go of this resentment towards this guy that killed his niece. And so he would call him once a week. We would go through that hospital meditation. And when I would say, okay, so we're going to go see this guy and we're going to go to the gift shop, and what are you going to get him in the gift shop? What would you get for him? And he would say, nothing. I'm not getting him a thing. Okay, I understand. I didn't push him. Okay, I understand. That's fine. And then we're going to go see him, and like, what would you do for him? Nothing. I'm not going to do anything for him. It's like, okay, well, at least we went to go see him. Right. And that was like week 1. And then week 2, still nope, nothing. Okay, but would you do anything? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'll open the drapes for him. Like, okay. And then I remember we went to the gift shop one time and he said, yeah, I'll get him a bottle of water. And like, that's it. He was free in that moment. That was it. His heart had opened up through God's grace. and through the actions of just taking the simple prayer. Okay, so like I said, that's on page 67. And now Brad is going to read for us page 552. So my recommendation is in the book where it says page 67. You write somewhere in there, see page 552. And this is a story in the back of the book. It's not in the first 164 pages, but it's very important. Part for us to read nonetheless. Okay, so we're gonna read this, and this is a story about a woman who had a resentment. She was able to get over most of them except for one, which is towards her mom, and it was killing her. And she saw a magazine article that said resentments, how to overcome resentment, something like that. There was a clergyman who wrote this thing about how to overcome resentments, and we'll read here. Brad will read for us exactly what it says.
He said, in effect, if you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or the thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you will be free. Even when you don't really want it for them and your prayers are only words and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyway. Do it every day for 2 weeks and you will find you have come to mean it and to want it for them, and you will realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, you now feel compassionate, understanding, and love.
Perfect. Thank you. So what we want to do, guys, is resentment, whoever it is in column 1. And what I do with my sponsees for good measure at this point in step 4, a lot of the nickels and dimes, the nickel and dime resentments that I was talking about, are going to disappear as soon as I say this prayer one time. Okay. God, please help me to show this person the same tolerance, pity, and patience I would cheerfully grant to a sick friend. Okay. When my boss offends me, or when I'm angry at my boss, we said to ourselves, my boss, Frank is a sick man. Please show me how I can be helpful to him. God, save me from being angry. Thy will, not mine, be done. God, please grant Frank the same health. What is it on 552, Brad? I'm sorry, I don't have it. Ask for everything I want for myself, I want for him. Ask for their happiness, their prosperity, and their health.
Their prosperity, their happiness.
Right. And that's what I say. So I say that prayer one time for good measure for each person. A lot of the nickels and dimes are going to disappear right away. Okay. Some of the $50 bills, or the $100 bills for that matter. In the case of my friend who was resented this guy that murdered his niece, that's $100 bill, my friends. Took a lot of prayer and a lot of trips to the hospital in his mind, but he got there. Okay. And that's what we did. Okay. And it works. It works if I apply that tool, and I apply that tool to this very day. It's one of the spiritual tools. It's a very important spiritual toolkit. It's an ethic that we get. Our book says that we need to be quick to see where religious people are right and make use of what they have to offer. This is something that we get from Christianity. This is something that we get from that little carpenter who wrote that other book. The idea that we pray for our enemies, right? It shouldn't sound too. Now, we are non-denominational. We're not a Christian organization whatsoever, but this is one of the tools that they got right. Hey, and now listen, it's only fair that I talk about Christianity because I also just talked about Buddhism. Okay. So I got to balance it out. Okay. Thich Nhat Hanh, people are suffering, right? Suffering, and we need to have compassion for them. Okay. And just like that as well, we need to pray for our enemies. And this is, man, being in AA is like being under the big spiritual big top, man. It's just one big circus of spirituality. It's incredible. It's awesome, man. I want it all. I want the whole 3-ring circus, brothers and sisters. I want it all, Okay, Brad, let's go. We're going to move to column 4. Now, in column 4 is simply, where am I to blame? Where am I to blame in this resentment? And we're going to talk about the 3 different places that I look in terms of a step 4 as to where am I to blame. Brad, you read for us?
Yeah, okay, so we're back on 67. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view to each and every one. Referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely. Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. When we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight.
Okay, you guys, so column 4, as I understand it, where I look is I refer to it as where am I to blame? Okay, so if you guys can see this right now, 1 line through the top, 2 lines in the center. Column 1 is who. Column 2 is why. Column 3 is affects my. In between column 3 and column 4 is what? Unmute yourselves and say it loud. What do we do?
Per.
All right, Deb, very good. Prayer. And column 4 is where am I to blame? Where am I to blame? Okay. Now, there are 3 places that I want to, you might not be able to see that at all. That writing is pretty small. Maybe, sorry, I know it's not the best, but we're gonna look at where am I to blame in the past? Where am I to blame when I look in the mirror? And where am I to blame today? Those are the 3 things that I look at. Where am I to blame in the past? Where am I to blame when I look in the mirror? And where am I to blame today? When we talk about the past, I want to make a note to go read page 62. And Brad, would you read page 62 for us? Selfishness and self-centeredness. You read that and I'll be right back. I'm going to get a better marker.
Okay, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt.
Okay, that's perfect. So, I'll get out of here.
I can read it again.
And it doesn't even work. Okay, so guys, when we talk about column 4, I want you all to make a note. Here, when we talk about column 4, okay, when we read page 62, what Brad just read, you could write step 4, column 4, okay? When it asks, where are we to blame? We ask ourselves, where are we to blame? On page 67 and 68, we could make a note back to page 62, okay? What I want to look at is what decisions based on self did I make that put me in this position to be hurt? Okay. I thought that column 4, when we talk about column 4, it was referring to what this person did this thing to me. This person that I resent harmed me, and then I reacted. How? And I thought that the way that I reacted to them was my part in column 4. Completely wrong. Completely all the way wrong. What I am looking at is what decisions based on self did I make that put me in that position to be hurt in the first place? That's what it says on page 62. So I'm not looking for, in what ways did I step on the toes of my fellows because of my selfishness and self-centeredness? And they retaliated. Their retaliation to my stepping on their toes is whatever I wrote in column 2. Whatever I wrote in column 2 that I resent them for is their retaliation to me stepping on their toes. I invariably find, invariably means every time, without exception, I invariably find I made decisions based on self that put me in a position to be hurt. That position to be hurt, that hurt is whatever I wrote in column 2. Okay? So I understand it's hard to wrap your mind around. Okay, and sometimes I say with sponsees in this part, just do the best you can. And when we get together in your step 5, we'll try to sort it out a little bit better. Okay, but let's go to page 65. Let's see if we can sort some of this out for Mr. Brown. Okay, so on page 65, I want you to imagine I'm Bill Wilson. I'm writing out my inventory on this guy, Mr. Brown. Brad, will you be kind enough to read? This is where we use those examples, by the way.
Yeah.
What does it say about Mr. Brown? What's the cause? Why am I angry at him?
So he's resentful at Mr. Brown. The cause is that Mr. Brown pays attention. It says his attention to my wife, told my wife of my mistress, Brown may get my job at the office.
Okay. Can anyone see something that I've done wrong in the past, a decision based on self in the past that put me in this position to be hurt by Mr. Brown? There's one glaringly obvious one.
Didn't pay your wife any attention.
Say again?
Didn't pay your wife any attention.
Well, there's
Jealousy,
there's one that's even more obvious than that. I think.
jealousy,
It's so easy.
Mistress.
Mistress, exactly right. Okay, if I don't have a mistress, Mr. Brown doesn't get to tell my wife about my mistress. You guys see that? Okay, that's it. But I don't see that. All I see is that Brown ripped me off, told my wife about my mistress. It's like, hey, big shot. Don't have a mistress. Okay, so what do I do? In column 4, where am I to blame in the past? I had a mistress. I shouldn't have been cheating on my wife. Okay. Yeah. And then someone else made the point, hey, maybe I wasn't paying attention to my wife. Who was I paying attention to? I was paying attention to the bar. I was paying attention to the bottle. I wasn't paying attention to my wife. Okay. And then Miss Brown may get my job at the office. Well, do you guys think I was the best employee in the world? You guys think I was working super hard? Okay, and Mr. Brown's going to get my job at the office. Of course he's going to work. Well, and if there's any doubt about that, let's go down to the example at the bottom. Let's read about my employer. Okay.
My employer, unreasonable, unjust, overbearing, threatens to fire me for drinking and padding my expense account.
Okay, that should give you an indication. No wonder Brown's going to get my job at the office. Okay, of course Brown's going to get my job at the office. What decisions based on self did I make that put me in this position to get hurt by Brown? Brown's going to get my job at the office because I'm drinking at the job and padding my expense account. Okay, of course he is. Okay, and why would my employer be unjust and overbearing? Maybe because I'm a drunken buffoon. Okay, the only reason people in my life ever had to like micromanage me is because I needed to be micromanaged. I saw Deb had her hand up, and I see Tom has his hand up.
yeah, Kevin, I just trying to kind of putting it together now, the way you're explaining it. When it says we stepped on the toes of others, and you're reiterating here about him padding his expense account, etc. So am I hearing that we have started the trouble in the first place? Is that what
Absolutely.
we're saying?
Absolutely, 100% every time. Invariably. That's what the book says. Invariably. Invariably. Okay. So like Deb, you mentioned you were, well, it can be different with moms depending on my mom was super controlling, right? Well, why would my mom be super controlling? Because I was out of control. I was out of control, drunk, on drugs, lying, stealing, all that stuff. Of course, I created this crazy neurotic Al-Anon person. I created that. Okay. If I have an employer that the classic example is Mr. Brown. I'm mad at Mr. Brown for telling my wife about my mistress. How dare he? Right? It's like, if I don't have a mistress, if I'm not cheating on my wife, that's why that happened. It happened because I was cheating on my wife. I'll give you another example. This guy, Mike, one time we were at a party and Mike told a whole room full of people. He was kind of making jokes. He was kind of roasting people. You know what I mean? He kind of had the floor. He was kind of telling jokes about this person, telling jokes about that person. Then he said suddenly, Kevin Olson, let me tell you something about Kevin. The guy's a thief. You can't trust that guy any further than you could throw him. If you had fillings in your teeth, you tried to steal them while you were sleeping. And everybody laughed. And all the girls in the room laughed at me. and I just died inside of public exposure and public humiliation. I just died. How could he do that to me? He humiliated me in front of a room. And so years later, I'm sitting in a treatment center going through this exact work and just thinking that Mike, he embarrassed me in that meeting, in not that meeting, that party, and humiliated me in front of all the women there and everybody there. And so does that affect my self-esteem? Yes. Does that affect my emotional security? Yes. Financial security? No. Physical security? It almost impacted his physical security that night, I'll tell you. But okay, did it impact my ambition? Yeah, I'm never going to another party again. Okay, did it impact my personal relations? Yes, with everyone in that room. Did it impact my sexual relations? Yes, with everyone in that room. Then, believe it or not, I had to imagine Mike in a hospital. And not me putting him there. I had to go imagine Mike in the hospital and say a prayer. God save him from being angry. God ask for all the everything I want for myself to be given to Mike. Ask for Mike's health, prosperity, and his wellness. Thy will not mine be done. Okay, beautiful. Say a prayer for Mike. Then look, what decisions based on self did I make that put Mike in that position to tell a room full of people that I was a thief? Anybody want to guess?
You ripped
I was
him
a
off?
thief. I was a thief. I stole from Mike many times. Okay. I ripped him off. I stole his money. I stole his booze. I stole his drugs. I would have stolen anything from him. But I couldn't see that. I couldn't see it. All I could see was that he, out of the blue, I'm standing there minding my own business. And he came out of nowhere and just attacked me for no reason. Okay. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they provoke us. We seemingly without, it says seemingly without provocation. I was just minding my own business, seemingly without provocation. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, I made decisions based on self, which later placed me in a position to be heard. Okay. So we can
Kevin?
review that a little. Yeah,
I just have a quick question
sure, Alex.
because just could you do an example? Like, what would you write in your column 4? Say if it was a tragedy, like this fella murdered my niece, because
Hang with that.
I really
that
haven't
into
done
it.
anything.
Guys, anyone who wants to hang out, just give me another 10 minutes and we'll finish resentments. Okay, just another 10. You gotta drop off, no hard feelings, but also don't drop off at the end of the call, because I love going around the room and talking to everybody about where you're from and just a quick introduction. It's my favorite thing in the world. Okay. So the next place we're gonna learn, or we're gonna look. Okay, remember, and I have a new marker here. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so this is column 4. Where am I to blame? I'm going to look in the past, which we just did, which is page 62. Now I'm going to look in the mirror. Okay. When I look in the mirror, what I am doing is saying the thing that I am judging or angry at this person for, am I guilty of, or am I capable of being guilty of the same thing myself? Okay. So I'm angry at this guy, Mike, for making fun of me in front of a room full of people. Well, gosh, Kevin, have I ever done anything like that? Have I ever made fun of someone in public to make myself look better? Yes, I probably did it today, unfortunately. Okay, it's a terrible extension of my defective character. Yeah, and then you know what? When I can see that the same thing that I'm mad at this person for, I am capable of being or doing myself, that's where compassion grows. Sympathy, here's the difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion. Sympathy is, I feel sorry for you. Empathy is, I can feel what you're feeling. But compassion is, we are the same. We are the same. And when I can see that what I'm mad at you for, I'm guilty of myself, okay, that's where I can see it. This is not the situation you're talking about, Alex, okay? But just, there's one more place, so hang with me, okay? So let's say Mr. Brown, told my wife of my mistress, would I do something like that? If I wanted to get with some other guy's woman, would I throw him under a bus and tell someone of his mistress? I'll tell you what, guys, I did that exact thing to a guy. I did that exact thing. I wanted to be with the woman he was with, and I knew that he was cheating on her, and I told her that he had done that so I could be with her. I have done that exact thing. Okay? Brown may get my job at the office. Hey, have I ever tried to angle a guy out of his job in his office so that I could get what he has? Yeah, I've done that. Or could I be capable of doing something like that? Yes. Okay? I'm mad at someone for lying to me. Have I ever told a lie? I'm mad at somebody for stealing. Am I capable of stealing? Have I ever stolen anything? It's like, yes, I could be capable of doing all of those things. Okay. Mad at someone for being overprotective, or someone for being, have I ever done that? Have I ever felt that way about a sponsee? Or could I understand? Could I even begin to understand what it would be like to have, a child who was dying of this disease of alcoholism and trying to overcome that and so on? Yes. Okay. So we look in the past, then I look in the mirror, and then lastly, Alex, this is what you're asking about. I look at, where am I to blame today? Today. And what I mean when I say, where am I to blame today? And this can be kind of a touchy one, guys. Okay. But here's the reality. When I was a kid, I was like a lot of us. This does not make me a unique case, but when I was a kid, I suffered traumatic abuse. Okay. A lot of us do in Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. I suffered traumatic abuse as a child. Okay. So where do I put that? Okay. Well, do I look at, what decisions based on self did I make that put me in a position to be hurt when I was 8 years old? Absolutely not. Zero. Negative. No. Well, what about the mirror? Like, do I look in the mirror? Do I see that like I'm capable? No. Zero. Negative. Not a chance. However, when I look at where am I to blame today, is there any sense in which I am using that situation to blame as a justification for my continued bad behavior today? Am I using that as a way? You got it, Alex. We talked about that, but you've heard me talk about it before. There's a word that sounds a lot like trauma, and the word is drama. Okay. Now, this is a fine line, brothers and sisters. Okay. Especially when we're sponsoring people, because trauma is a real thing. It is a real thing, and it deserves attention and care. But no one ever made a bigger mess out of trauma than alkies. Because for me, it morphs into drama, and what it morphs into, brothers and sisters, is self-pity. Okay? And I will sit at the wet end of a bar and beg people to buy me drinks and tell them my little story of childhood trauma and abuse. Anyone else here identify with that? Okay? And look, when the spiritual malady is overcome, then I straighten out mentally and physically. I kept trying to go to the therapist and do the trauma therapy without having to do AA or get sober. Okay? You guys see the problem there? That I would go to trauma therapy number 1, and then I would go to number 2, and they'd want to start talking about my family, and let's talk about your family. And then I would go get drunk. Okay? Because I couldn't handle the pain. My experience, my real true experience, is that it wasn't until I got sober, and I was 4 years sober, with a solid relationship with God that I accessed through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, deeply rooted in a strong home group where I had multiple commitments at my home group and a strong sponsor. When on that foundation, then I could go do very powerful work with an actual therapist. But I kept trying to do it the other way around. Okay. And what's worse is I kept using that trauma, my trauma. I would use my trauma. Okay. I kid about that. Trauma is a real thing. It's a real thing. but alkies make a mess out of it. Okay, and the moment that the alcoholic heard like, oh, I'm the victim. All right, good. See you later. I'm going to the bar. Okay, it's not my fault. Not my fault. These things happen to me. I didn't, it's not up to me. I take those things and I continue to use them. That's where I'm to blame in that today. Okay, because I tell you what, it makes no sense, but we all understand that cat in Texas, or Kansas rather, that cat in Kansas who was mad at the guy who murdered his niece. What do you think he was doing? What was his narrative that he would tell himself? Did he get revved up? Raise your hand, guys, if you've ever gotten drunk at someone. There's only one category of people that get drunk at other human beings, and that is alcoholics. And that's what this guy was doing. He was getting drunk at this guy who killed his niece. And that almost sounds plausible. Okay? Maybe once, maybe twice, but not day after day or month after month. And how many of us blamed I blamed my drinking on my abuse, or I blamed my drinking on my father because he wasn't there, or I blame my drinking on my mother, I blame my drinking on whoever, whatever it is. Okay, that's where I'm to blame in that resentment today. So if I have, in my experience, if I have abuse, if I have trauma, if I have childhood sexual abuse, childhood emotional, physical abuse, anything like that, it's a column 1 resentment thing. That's where I put it. Column one, my cousin Mike. Column 2, why? Well, I'm not going to get into it. Column 3, how does that affect me? You better believe you know how that affects me when I was 8 years old. Okay, what do I do? Do I have to pray for Mike? Not easy. And what if my prayers are just words and I don't really mean it? What did 552 say? Go ahead and do it every day. Do it every day for 2 weeks, and I'll find that I've come to mean it. And that's what happened. Then in column 3, I had to get real. That it was time to grow up, and that I could not continue to blame my drinking on that scenario. I had to get real about that. And I had to begin to find some level of forgiveness. Brothers and sisters, let me share with you one of the most incredible things I ever learned in life. That forgiving someone that hurt me like that when I was little, forgiving does not mean condoning what they did. Forgiving just means letting it go. That's all it means. Okay. And Sandy Beach, if you guys ever know the great AA speaker, Sandy Beach, if he was asked one time to summarize Alcoholics Anonymous in 2 words. And he summarized it as the words, let go. To him, that was the summary of Alcoholics Anonymous, let go. And surely that's part of what we need to do. Yeah, Rob, I like that. I remember, I think you posted that last time. Forgiving is accepting the apology that will never come. I love that, man. I love that. And I love you guys. And I'm glad to be here. I think kind of a heavy. All right, let's shake that off.